Action!
Hey everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. I am here with my liquid courage as always, and today we are going to talk about all of the books that I read for the month of June. I can honestly hardly believe that June is already over. I feel like I blinked and it's done. We had such a busy month. We have like a week in the middle of June where 18 different things happen at once. And so it was our son Wolf's first birthday. We traveled to Detroit for his birthday party, and then his birthday party was on the same day as our wedding anniversary, and the day after that was Father's Day. So we had a lot of things going on, and then actually that same long weekend that we spent in Detroit, we actually closed on our house. I think I mentioned it in a vlog couple weeks ago that we had some big life things going on, and that big life thing is that we were in the process of buying a house. We are now closed, and that house is all the way in Michigan. I'm originally from northern Michigan, but I've been living in Chicago for 13 years almost. And then my husband, he grew up in the suburbs and has lived in Chicago for a long time. But a lot of my family lives in the Detroit area, and we don't really have any family left here anymore. So we just really wanted to go somewhere where we could own a house and also be close to family for our son. So that is why June has been so crazy. I only read 5 books this month, which is actually right on average for me, but after reading 11 books in May, it's a smaller amount than that. And if you've been watching my channel from the beginning, you'll have noticed that I've kind of been on this sort of chart with my reading. I started in February and I had a pretty dismal reading month. I think I read 3 books that month. March was better. April was in the pit a little bit. May was my best reading month in so long. And so then June is kind of a little bit better than average, but still fits this trajectory. And with everything going on, I'm totally not surprised at all. I'm glad that I finished even 1 book. I am hoping that this trend continues with a really awesome reading month in July. In August, that's when we're going to be moving. So I have a feeling we're going to be doing a lot of packing, lots of craziness happening. And so I'm hoping that July is my perfect summer reading month. But let's get into what I read in June. My average rating for the month of June was actually 4.05, which is awesome for 5 books read. My lowest rated book this month was The Counselors, and I rated that a 3.5 out of 5 star. This was tough for me to rate too, because it's worth noting that it is a YA thriller, and I am not a YA, unfortunately. So I'm not exactly the audience for it. The Counselors is about Goldie. She is a camp counselor at this sort of elite summer camp that she gets to go to for free because her parents are employed there. And this is really her last summer there with her best friends that she's known there since they were all 8 years old. The summer is what really brings them together, and her friends, they come from rich families. So outside of the summer camp, they don't really have a lot to connect over. And Goldie is especially looking forward to this summer because she had a pretty traumatic year. A lot of her high school experience was not great, and actually, while everyone else was graduating, she didn't get to and has to be held back another year. But when she goes to camp, everything is better. The vibes are immaculate, which is really the thing that I loved the most about this book. That perfect sort of cozy, woodsy summer camp vibe, I think, is perfect for a summer read. And then those idyllic, exciting summer camp vibes are squashed when a dead body is found at the camp. Goldie knows who the victim is, and there are a few potential suspects in the camp, and she's really trying to piece together what happened, especially since this dead body relates directly to the trauma that she was experiencing throughout the year. I was really invested in finding out whodunit. It is definitely a great mystery. I didn't particularly love Goldie or any of the characters, and I thought that the conclusion was pretty predictable. I was anticipating that reveal that I was expecting, and it did happen, but it was really fun seeing how it all unfolded. Goldie quite literally trips over all of the clues in this book, which was also a reason why I didn't give it as high of a rating as I was maybe hoping for. I think that the cover for this book, it's really awesome, but a little misleading. I was expecting more like slasher horror vibes instead of a sort of camp style whodunit. I think Jessica Goodman, she was also really invested in the summer camp vibes and this small town and this camp that sort of lords over the town. It really sets it up to where the camp is like the main driving force of income in this town, but that everyone in the town hates it because no one that lives there can afford to go there. So there is this like class disparity happening, but this town is so small where it's convenient in some storylines where everybody knows what happened to Goldie. It's like this big open wound on the town. Everybody knows everyone and everyone is in each other's business. But there's like this reveal that happens to where it's like, how would that not have gotten back to Goldie? Or these businesses in town where it's like the counselors go to these bars to let loose and these bars don't card and everyone goes there and it's like this magical summer place and it's like the best kept secret in town. And I'm like,
who's keeping these secrets? Like,
how does nobody know that the sushi place that's trash in town is like giving everybody tons of alcohol and food poisoning? So that was another reason that it wasn't rated a 4 or more, was just the convenience of the location and how, you know, it works in some ways, but not always in others. And Goldie's just like very sloppy finding of all of the clues. It was like every time she tripped, I was like,
is there a clue there?
And one would be right under her feet. All of the other books that I read in June are rated 4 and up. So the first 4-star rating that I had in June was Dial A For Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. I wish I had my physical copy here. I got it from a little free library, which I was very excited about, but I already loaned it to my mom because I knew that she would love it, and she did. This book was so fun, and I truly hope that they make this book into a movie someday soon. It's just so easy to see everything that's happening. There's so much chaos happening of these wild moments where you literally just drop your jaw because you cannot believe what is happening on the page. And just when you think that something horrible has happened, something more horrible and off the wall happens. I hate using the word zany, but there are definitely some zany moments in this book. Dial A For Aunties is about Madeline. She is a single woman and she works in a wedding business with her mom and her aunts. They kind of are a one-stop shop for flowers, hair, food, and photography. And Madeline is frustratingly single. Her mom and her aunts can't take it. And so then her mom ends up taking matters into her own hands and sets up Madeline with a blind date from somebody that she meets on a dating app while she was catfishing him as her daughter. Madeline goes on the blind date with this guy and he is a scumbag. Nobody likes him and she ends up accidentally killing him in self-defense. It is such an inconvenient time for her to end up accidentally killing somebody because her mom and her aunts and herself have been booked for this massive wedding for this billionaire power couple and this very exclusive resort, and it is like a huge weekend for their business. And so she knows that she can't call the cops because that would just really drag things out, and she needs her rest for this big wedding weekend. So she takes the body home with her and she calls on her mom and her aunts to help her hide the body. They thought they were doing a good job hiding it, but then when the body is accidentally shipped to the island for the wedding, they have to figure out how to run their business, keep cool, and do their wedding things while also actively trying to hide a body every single place that they go. It is so fun, so funny. There is a little sprinkle of romance in there, and I just had no idea where any of this book was going. It's unpredictable in the best way. You think you know what's going to happen, and something even more off the wall happens instead. I just had such a fun time reading this book. I didn't rate it higher than a 4 just because we are in this first person narrator, which has a very active inner monologue, and that's not always my favorite thing. So it is a 4. I could maybe bump it up to like a 4.25 because the more I think about it, the more I had such a fun time reading it. But for now, it's a 4. My next 4-star read, I just finished today, right in time for the end of the month. I have been listening to it on audio since last month, and that is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. This book was described as being for fans of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I definitely get those vibes, but it is very different in its setting and the execution of the characters. At the heart of the story, we have Elizabeth Zott. She is a biochemist and in the science field in the 1950s. And so of course in that time, nobody takes her seriously about literally anything. She's super dedicated to science, super dedicated to trying to be taken seriously by all of these men who are constantly trying to undermine her, and her pursuit of being taken seriously is sort of derailed when she falls in love with another head chemist at the company that she works for, and they fall in love, and they have such a sweet romance, and it's real and it's genuine. But then people immediately are quick to say that she's riding his coattails. People stop wanting to give her credit for her work. And because of this, she does not want to marry him. And she just wants to be known for herself, have her own name, and be able to stand confidently as Elizabeth Zott. Not as a Mrs., not as somebody relying on her husband for anything. She's super independent, almost to a fault. And when Elizabeth becomes pregnant out of wedlock, this creates an entire new string of problems for her where she loses her job. She's then left trying to take care of a baby and figure out how she's supposed to continue her scientific pursuits and continue to make money. She gets approached by a fellow parent at the school that her daughter goes to and is asked to be the host of a cooking show where she's able to demonstrate a lot of her scientific knowledge. And the creator of the show is kind of hoping for this very housewife sort of vibe, like wear the apron, have this very kitschy kitchen that sort of models what the average woman wants. And Elizabeth is like,
the average woman does not want somebody stuffing this down their throat. The average woman wants to be seen. They want to be heard.
She kind of becomes this iconic television hero speaking to the modern woman of that time. This book is so fun. The characters feel so real, and our third-person narrator really bounces around. So you don't just follow Elizabeth Zott. Sometimes we are in the mind of her boyfriend, Calvin. Sometimes we're in the mind of their daughter, Mad. Sometimes we're following their neighbor who kind of helps take care of her daughter, the producer of the TV show, the viewer in Iowa watching the TV show. You really bounce all the way around, which does create a very complete picture, and it does kind of make it chaotic from time to time. There is a little sprinkle of a magical element with their dog character, 630. He is a stellar character. I love 630, but I know that a lot of readers prefer to have things be either magical or not, and 630 is the only magical-ish part of this book. I really enjoyed it, and especially in the audiobook, I loved kind of bouncing around. You almost feel like you're listening to like a biopic or something about Elizabeth Zott, and you're getting all of these perspectives, which was super fun. This book will also make you cry. There are some real gut punch emotional scenes in this book that really caught me off guard. I was expecting this entirely lighthearted sort of read, and there is a lot of depth and emotion to this book. I also couldn't tell if it was the way that the book was narrated or if it's the book itself, but sometimes it was really hard to tell if like any of the characters should be liked, because we spend so much time darting around. While Elizabeth Zott is here trying to be taken seriously, we get all of these other perspectives of people that just like really hate her for being this feminist, atheistic scientist. You get all this negativity about her, but then you'll get into another character and they have negativity about them. And so it is hard to tell like who we're supposed to like and who is genuinely like good or bad. It's definitely also not as fun as Mrs. Maisel. I think that it gets that comparison based on the time period and the loud woman at the center of the story. But I think that comparison also just isn't fair because it sets up your expectations in one way and they weren't quite met there. The next book that I read this month was a 4.25 star out of 5 star, and that was I'll Show Myself Out by Jessie Klein. This is a book of essays about motherhood, and Jessie Klein is just so funny, so relatable, and I really love how she approached writing about motherhood through the lens of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. Jessie Klein is a comedic writer. She wrote on like Inside Amy Schumer, Saturday Night Live, and I think Big Mouth. So she is very, very funny, and she mostly wrote this book, it sounds like, through the pandemic. And she found herself wanting to write about motherhood and this transformative, huge experience that she was going through. And she just acknowledges how cringe that feels, like when you think of a mommy blog, like how ick that feels. Writing about mothering doesn't seem like something that would be taken seriously. And then she was listening to a podcast that was talking about the hero's journey in literature, and she was finding herself thinking about how easily motherhood fits into this hero's journey, and how looking at parenthood and motherhood through this lens really adds a level of depth and seriousness to it. And it's not just something that like,
okay, you had a kid, life is over, have fun cleaning up dirty diapers for the rest of your life.
It's like,
that dirty diaper is epic, and it's building your character, and it's doing this whole thing that you don't even know yet.
and I just really appreciated that. Like I said, she's very relatable through this process. She writes essays about how much she hates her car seat, which I relate to that. I have an unexplainable hatred of putting my son in a car seat. He doesn't even dislike his car seat, but it's just something, that like extra step before you can go on with your day, that just gets me. And she gets it. Like, she writes about the car seat, potty training, how she hired night nurses, and how having a doula and night nurses really changed her life. She writes about explaining big things to her kid, the embarrassing things that we have to go through when we're dealing with our children. I thought she was so funny. The only reason I didn't rate it higher was that she does write from an extreme place of privilege, which does sort of cut the relatability. I think she almost tries too hard to not seem as privileged as she is. Will write about these things that she didn't know about pregnancy or birth. And I just feel like maybe her doulas, night nurses would have helped her with that. But I think she was maybe trying to relate to the people who are like,
what is happening? What is happening?
Throughout every stage of pregnancy and birth. I did find myself laughing out loud multiple times throughout reading this book. I read so many passages out loud to my husband, especially from the essay that's called Underwear Sandwich. And it is about the layering pad technique that you go through after you give birth, and how she didn't know anything about it. But the way she writes about it is just so funny, and how there's all of these like little things that we're never taught about, but then we learn all of this stupid stuff about boys and their sexuality and like their sexual health when we're in school, but not about the underwear sandwich. Super funny. I think that this would be especially a great book for any like new mom or mom that has been in the trenches for a little while. Definitely recommend this one. The final book that I read this month is one that I was so happy came out. I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't know that this was coming out, and I'm disappointed in everyone else for not telling me. And that was Happy Go Lucky by David Sedaris. It has possibly the creepiest cover I've seen in a while. This one got a 4.5 star rating from me. David Sedaris is almost always a 4.5 and up star author for me. And I was especially excited about this one. There are essays that take place in the pandemic, and it also deals a lot with the loss of his father. So the tone of this book is definitely a little bit heavier than his other ones. He's exploring a lot of really deep and hard feelings in this book. He did not get along with his father for most of his life and kind of always felt like he was at war with him. Like his father always had to be the best, smartest person in the room, and David always took the brunt of a lot of his emotional abuse. He's also reckoning with the fact that his father had been accused of sexual assault by his sister who had committed suicide, and how that changes his perspective and how it really forces him to look at these moments throughout their life that they maybe raised an eyebrow at the time, but sort of brushed it off as like, oh, that's just dad. But with these sort of accusations, changes the vibe of that. Also ended up having a much better relationship with his father as his father got older. So when he was like in his 90s in a nursing home, it was like really the first time that his dad wasn't beating up on him or like giving him a hard time for anything, and they were actually able to connect and have valuable family time. So he explores how complicated that is too, where like he hated this man for like most of his life until the very end, right before he dies. But of course, mixed in with all of these heavy feelings and emotions are just that like razor sharp, witty commentary that David Sedaris is known for. Lots of really funny quips. There's a great essay in here about the themes and trends that follow him on tour, and it's full of very funny jokes. The reason that this didn't get a full 5 star for me, and I'm not sure if this is because of like the serious subject matter, but there are a few parts of this that felt forced, almost like a David Sedaris parody of himself. A few of the essays end on like a punchline, which I don't really remember from his other essays. Like they all seem like they have to end with this like punchline, end joke, poignant thought that just came across as a little clunky and like, okay. You can definitely also just feel where he's getting older himself. He's definitely lived a privileged life for a long time, and that becomes very evident, especially as he's writing about the pandemic and how that's affected his life. Some of it's hard to relate to when he's talking about buying the apartment above him, get space from his boyfriend, just things like that where he felt a little more out of touch to the reader, but also himself. It's still very funny, but it is what kind of kept it from being that 5-star read for me. Those are all of the books that I read for the month of June. My next video is going to be coming up probably a few days after this one. With my July TBR, I am going to be doing the Summer Splash Readathon, hosted I think by Sally Tim and a few other creators as well. And so I am very excited. There's a bingo sheet, and especially since May was so good and June was sort of down here, I'm thinking July is going to be awesome. I'm really going to dedicate as much time as I can to reading and enjoying the summer vibes before August becomes a month full of packing and moving, which I hate. If you are new here, please subscribe. I've got a lot more video ideas coming, especially once this freaking move is over. I want to just do so much more with this channel and the videos that I'm making and the style of videos that I'm making. I'll actually have space to do things outside of my bedroom, and I'm just really looking forward to it. So please subscribe, like this video, that helps me out as well, and leave a comment down below with your favorite book that you read in the month of June. I am really looking forward to hearing that and getting some recommendations maybe for July. Happy reading, everyone, and cheers!
I'm a baby.